and know what you value. A lot of people don't understand that because they don't know themselves and they don't know where they're going.
Right, right.
So have you been in those situations where you're around people and you talk about some of the things that you're doing and the positivity that you have? Do you almost feel like maybe they're intimidated by that conversation, or they just don't know how to
Yeah,
handle that conversation?
not too much as intimidated, I don't think. I just think it's a lack of knowing. So like some of the vocabulary that I use, it's, they might not have come across it before in that context, as in, what do you internally think about yourself?
Mm.
And Jay Shetty's got this great quote, and I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am, which in a negative sense, like let that sink in for a second, replay it a couple times because it's very difficult to really understand. But what it basically breaks down is, I'm not really who I think I am right now. It's not a negative at all. It's like, I'm not who Kendrick thinks I am. I am who Kendrick thinks I think I am. So I'm basing my own self in everything that Kendrick perceives me as, and which isn't true at all. I think a lot of people think that, but that's not how it should be. We need to see ourselves and be comfortable with growing ourselves into the positive image that we see in ourselves.
Mhm.
And I just think it's, being a
Welcome back to another episode of the Roundtable Discussion. My name is Kendrick Coates, and I'm alongside my partner in crime,
Patrick Pommier.
And today's discussion, we are going to be talking about growth and personal development. Now, growth is actually one of the 6 emotional human needs. It's something that we all need in life, whether we consciously think about it or not. And growth falls under the idea of our spiritual or fulfilling need that we have to have. So if you think about it, as we're going through life, and if you feel incomplete or you don't feel like you're where you're at, sometimes it'll come from growth, maybe not feeling happy with where you're at. Maybe you just need another level of growth. So as we discuss growth, we're going to go through some of the things that we've done, some of the things that you can do to get things rolling in the right direction. A lot of times there are many people that are unhappy and they can't figure out why. So sometimes you have to sit down and write things on a piece of paper, what you want from a professional standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, what you want from a personal standpoint. And like I say, growth is something that all humans need, whether we consciously think about it or not. So as far as growth, what is your definition of growth or personal development, and what are some things that you've done, Pat?
Well, first, so with growth, you can have a growth mindset, and then on the opposite side of that is a fixed mindset. And you see a lot of times people who have that fixed mindset are the same person. You go to high school with a bunch of people, and you go back and meet them at your 10, 15, 20-year reunion, and they're the same exact person that you remember in high school. If you're seeing that, then that's probably a problem. And hopefully those people still aren't your friends, but hopefully they have grown. And so the fixed mindset is, you're stuck in that same rut, doing the same things that you've done for years, not mentally or physically growing at all. But growth to me, on the positive end, it's basically just expanding your perspective and forming your perspective around positive thoughts. And me personally, what I've done within the past few years since started my journey is basically I started it all with a relationship book, and that made me view not just like my spousal relationship, but every relationship that I had. It just made me view that relationship from other people's points of views or other people's perspectives, as well as molding and changing my own as what's important in a relationship, which was complete opposite from what I had thought before. So that book really sparked it for me. But what I currently do, and I do every day, is I journal. I try to get some type of either reading or audio knowledge-based item in my routine every day. So maybe a podcast or some type of book that I read, as well as who I surround myself with and the community and conversations that I have with those people, including, you might have heard of him, Kendrique, along with just very close friends and colleagues that I have. So that's kind of how I, practice growth mindset every single day. It's very simple. Keep learning and, doing things that expand your perspective.
Yeah. And I would say, since knowing you back in, so let's sidetrack for a second, because I don't think we've hit on like how we've met. And so how I think about it is, we were in college, we were living in Champaign, and I don't know, I think you were over at my apartment. We had people coming over, and I think in some other person's apartment, they were having a jersey party.
Yeah, right.
And of course, I had my jerseys, and Pat's like, "Oh man, can I borrow a jersey?" And I was like, "Dude, I'll let you borrow one, but you cannot spill any alcohol on this jersey."
Shout out to Paul Pierce. Not a fan, but I wore his jersey that night.
He wore the jersey that night, and I think there was a little bit of alcohol spilled on it, but I gave him a pass. And so, knowing you from that point, I think it was 2008 until now, just seeing how like we both have grown within our own lives, like relationship wise, personal wise, career wise. And I think that's just so important, having people around you that grow with you.
And who support that also.
Exactly.
They grow with you and support.
Exactly. Because there are a lot of people that just hang out with people just for the comfort of having somebody there. And that's the biggest waste of time. Like, why not just buy a dog? Because a dog's going to be more supportive of you than just having somebody that's just there.
Right.
Like a dog, you can leave that dog for 6 months. You could leave that dog for 1 month. You could leave that dog for 5 minutes. But every time you walk in the door, it's like, it's the very first time they've seen you.
Still excited.
Exactly. And so when we talk about growth, and we'll hit on, you mentioned going back to the class reunion. Like, I've been questioned at times with, why don't you come back to the class reunion? Well, I talk to everybody that I want to talk to.
Right.
And for me, maybe it's a little bit naive, or maybe it's stubborn or arrogant from my standpoint, but for me to just go back to discuss what I'm doing in my life and, the basic, what are you doing in life? Where are you at? Where are you living at? Who are you dating? Like, there's no energy in my box for small talk. Like,
and actually, not just you don't have energy for it, it drains you. And I can even tell, like, you telling me things, like conversations that you had, and your tone of voice, your excitement level about those conversations. I already know what they're going to be about, like small talk, weather stuff, just because like you're tired of those conversations. That's am I. And like, give me something with depth and substance. And that's where my mind lights up and my energy goes to.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like, let's talk about some books. Let's talk about some conspiracy theories. Let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about how can you become a better person.
Yeah.
And a lot of our conversations now, that's what it's centered around. It's like, how can you spend so much time with somebody and talk about, we went out to this bar, we watched Netflix, and like,
and we just went out to a bar, which is very rare for us to do. Yeah. But like, we had a great time. It was awesome. It was cool. But like, we understand that there's balance with that. And so, yeah, we had a very good time, met some interesting people, but that's like a once in every few months type of thing.
And the thing is, those people that we met, it was the same conversations that we used to have back in like 2008, 2009. Yeah. It's like, damn, like we saw ourselves in those people. And it's like, we weren't rude or mean to those
people. Our old selves. We saw our old selves.
Yeah. Those people. And so when we talk about growth, and I'll give another example. I had a friend reach out to me the other day, and he was like, I'm starting to realize that when you talk about negative things, people seem to be more interested. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about positive things, people are like, oh, that's cool. But I think when you start to grow and you start to, know yourself and know what you value, a lot of people don't understand that because they don't know themselves and they don't know where they're going.
Right.
So have you been in those situations where you're around people and you talk about some of the things that you're doing and the positivity that you have, do you almost feel like maybe they're intimidated by that conversation, or they just don't know how to
Yeah,
handle that conversation?
not too much as intimidated, I don't think. I just think it's a lack of knowing. So like some of the vocabulary that I use, it's, they might not have come across it before in that context, as in, what do you internally think about yourself?
Mm.
And Jay Shetty's got this great quote, and I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am, which in a negative sense, like let that sink in for a second, replay it a couple times because it's very difficult to really understand. But what it basically breaks down is, I'm not really who I think I am right now. It's not a negative at all. It's like I'm not who Kendrick thinks I am. I am who Kendrick thinks I think I am. So I'm basing my own self in everything that Kendrick perceives me as, and which isn't true at all. I think a lot of people think that, but that's not how it should be. We need to see ourselves and be comfortable with growing ourselves into the positive image that we see in ourselves.
Mhm.
And I just think it's, being aware of yourself, first of all, and then taking the necessary steps to really figure yourself out.
Mhm.
And yeah, like it can be scary at first because you dive deep and you cross some bridges that you don't want to have to think about and deal with. But really when you do, and when you're vulnerable with yourself, you're much easier to be vulnerable with other people too, and you don't really care. And I've seen Kendrick specifically just probably within the past few months just kind of like branch out. Like he's never really cared what other people think, but he used to have these real nice watches like the G-Shock watches or like the jerseys that we were talking about earlier. And like just within the past few months, it's just like he'll say things and he just doesn't, not that they're negative anyway. He just like says things like his opinion, and he just doesn't really care what other people think of it. And that's beautiful to me. I think I'm still getting to that point because we all kind of care, especially like some people. Like I'll always care what my parents think, but at the same time, I realize and I understand that I'm going to be me and do what I need to do to feel fulfilled and happy. So
It's funny you say that, because you remember the conversation we had. I think we're at Flat Top and we were talking about religion, and,
oh yeah,
and I was like, gosh, I better not speak too loud because there might be people around. And then I think you said, why does it even matter?
yeah, like what does it even matter? Right.
And so there are still maybe certain things that I don't want to.
You just don't want to be disrespectful to other
Exactly.
people's views
Exactly.
or opinions. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, why does it matter anyway?
Right. Yeah.
We want to be respectful, but we still want to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it comes from a growth perspective, I think a lot of us, and I was at this point at one time, we're afraid to be authentic with just ourselves.
Right.
Not just with the people around us. We're afraid to be authentic with ourselves. And you hit on it, is like when you start going through these things and you start becoming more what's the word I'm looking for? More comfortable with yourself and more vulnerable with yourself, it is very, very tough. And when you go through that, sometimes you have to eliminate friends that really aren't bringing value, eliminate, some of the relationships that you've been in. And you're just like, damn, I'm just like by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much growth and there's so much potential with being by yourself, because you really figure out your why, your direction, and then thirdly, and most importantly, who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very easy from a societal standpoint to be labeled on who we think we are, as opposed to who we think we know we are. And that you hit you hit on the quote, and I don't even repeat it.
Yeah, dude.
I'm gonna have to rewind this and go back. And the other thing I'll hit on is, as you go through this growth, especially from high school, and I'll be interested to get your viewpoint on this, is when I was in high school, it was always Kendrick Coates the athlete.
Right.
And I was like, it fit for a while. And then in college, I was like, okay, I'm still an athlete. But then after that, it's like,
now what?
what's your identity after
Yeah.
that? And so did you ever feel you were in that point of like, okay, I was an athlete. Okay, what's my new identity?
Yeah, I kind of always get. I mean, I wasn't like to the level, like collegiate level, like what you went into. Fairly good at football,
Table
and
tennis.
no, man, I'm a beast at ping pong. Yeah, I identify myself as a ping pong player, basically. No, but and then basketball, I was great at defense, but I couldn't shoot, and I still can't worth crap. So, I was never really. I mean, I was an athlete. I was always very social. I went to a smaller school though, so you kind of knew everybody. So I think everybody has their labels, but it's really, but that's again, that's other people's perspective of you. So you see yourself through other people's eyes, um, and but that's not really who you are. And I think you really have to see yourself for who you want to become, which is your higher level self. Like I view myself now from a standpoint of who I want to be in the next few years. So then I grow into that. And if we're viewing ourselves in the present, then we can only become what that viewpoint holds for us. So we view ourselves in the future, and we're ultimately going to become that person who is hopefully better. But it's the same thing if we take it as a negative. If I see myself through, this is just an analogy. My father's not an actual alcoholic, but if my father's an alcoholic and I see myself through a negative lens, like all I can become is what my father is, then ultimately what's going to happen? I'm going to become an alcoholic. Like you can have twins, and one of them becomes an alcoholic, and the other is completely against it, just based on perspective and how they view it. Um, so at the end of the day, it's just all about, you know, are you in a mental state to grow positively and to do the things that need to be done to get yourself to that next level.
That's deep right there.
Yeah, that was good actually. I impressed myself.
That's deep, and kind of to paraphrase what you said is, if you have, say, a parent or a guardian that is, we'll just say, alcoholic, drug addict, obese, lazy. I mean, the list goes on.
Mm.
It's very easy for you to view yourself as, well, I'm only going to be or reach the potential that my parent or guardian reached. I think it takes a strong person. I think it takes an aware person to get past that idea or that label of, I'm only going to be as good as my parent or my guardian. Because like you said, you could have two twins, one goes left, one goes right. Well, they grew up in the same household. Why did one go right, one go left? There's usually certain things that have happened in our lives that dictate the direction that we'll ultimately go, which kind of segues into the next thing is, like, when we talk about growth, a lot of people dwell on things that have happened in the past. And so what happens, and we'll take divorces, we'll take relationships, we'll take bullying, we'll take drug use, we'll take, I mean, these lists go on and on and on. But if you sit and dwell on those things that you've gone through and you don't grow and you don't allow yourself to become vulnerable and take a step back away from all these social influences, it makes it very, very hard to get through those things to become the person that you will eventually become. And that's why we see now people talk about why does this person suffer from depression? I don't have any medical knowledge on depression, but I'm just saying, from depression, obesity, why do people suck, for lack of better words, at relationships? And I think we've hit on, I think in a past show, of, if you don't work through things that have gone on in your past, they eventually come up in relationships. So there's no way around it. They eventually come up in relationships, whether we'll take, I can't even find a good example. Let's see, you have a good example.
Well, kind of myself. I was in a very serious relationship of about 4.5, 5 years, and I knew that wasn't I wasn't quite sure why, but I just always knew that wasn't my end point. And I always had more to explore. Um, and I didn't want to hold her back or myself. And I think that was all derived from, and I went through a lot of other relationships similar, not exactly, but similar to it, where, I was, at first I was like, why am I not more attracted to her? Why, like, I still loved her, but it wasn't the same, like I wasn't in love with her. And why is that? Why is that? And it was because I could never let myself be completely vulnerable with anybody and let anybody in. Like, I could perceive it to be that way, but I was never truly, truly vulnerable with anybody because I was so afraid of letting anybody in that I would get hurt. And that all derives back from my parents who divorced. And so I saw that growing up, and I just kind of made it a point in my life, like, I wasn't going to go through that same thing and be hurt by someone so much that it broke me completely down. And so, like, on personal experience, that's just drawing from, and that took me, I probably only really actually like dove into that and figured it out maybe about 7, 8 months ago, like about a year or less. But like, when you start to realize, why you act a certain way or why you do the things you do, it's a lot easier to tackle the obstacles that are in front of you.
That's in kind of hitting on that with like not allowing people in. That's and just we hit on it. You become, or you look at certain situations that have gone in the home and say, well, I don't want to become that.
Right.
But the more and more we think of, you hear it all the time with, I don't want to become my dad. I don't want to become my mom. I don't want to become my uncle, my aunt, whatever it may be. And what happens? People usually become that person because we're so focused in on not becoming that person that we don't want to become, that we end up becoming the person because we spend so much energy in everything we do in our lives, whether the next relationship we get into, we're like, well, I don't want to do that because my mom and dad do that.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it so hard, and it's like, damn, I just became.
Yeah, your energy goes to what you focus on.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example. So.
And so when you have and this is a cool thing about Pat is like, I spent time with him in college and outside of college and just seeing him grow over 10 years. And I mean, I saw people he's dated, he's seen people that I've dated, and just evolving into what we used to perceive as, man, that's a really good looking girl, to now it's like, okay, that's a good looking girl, but she has value. She actually brings value to my life. And value can come from the relationships you guys have. Like, there was a quote I saw, and it was like, and this can go for women and men, it's like, if you eliminate sex, what else do you have to bring to the table?
Right, yeah.
I was like, damn, that was deep.
And so, there's obviously a physical attraction. And I think that physical attraction, no matter how bad it seems, has to be there, at least at first. Like, you have to have some type of physical attraction with somebody. But the base and the building blocks of a relationship need to be built on a lot more than just the physical attraction. Because after that, like you said, it's nothing. And that wears off after time. And it's psychologically proven that you lose sexual interest in a partner over time. There are things you can do to counteract that, but if you're not doing those things, then ultimately, like, that shouldn't be the main reason you're together. And so now what's sexy to me is a girl, and really doesn't even matter what she looks like. Yeah, there has to be some physical attraction, but if we can have a great conversation about like books that we're reading or podcasts we listen to or nutrition and health, then that's like that. Like, oddly enough,
that's like Christmas.
That physically turns me on, though. Like, I don't need any macaroon for that. Like, that physically turns me on, and it's great when you have that spiritual, not religious in a sense, but spiritual and emotional connection with somebody, which is far past the physical. And yeah, you can build. I listened to a podcast. It was the Shameless Sex podcast the other day, and there's a lady on there, and I forget what her name was, but she was just very vulgar and blunt. But she knew exactly who she was, and she had the best sex of her life because of the partner that she was with completely understood her, and vice versa. And So yeah, while that physical attraction needs to be there, you can do things to make up for that as you grow and get older and older. But really, it's if you have a mental and spiritual connection, that can make physical so much better.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's one of the biggest things is we're so quick to judge externally. So what I mean by that is if you see a model walking down the street, you're just like, man, I really want to date her. And you start talking to her, and you're just like, there's really nothing this girl can talk to me about besides the TV show she watches and the TV show she watches.
yeah.
And so, and I think that is for a lot, and I went through the same thing. You know, I thought when we were in college, I was like, looks, I don't care what she's talking about. Looks, that's a good looking girl, I guess. But now,
Wait, you went for looks? Okay.
no, just kidding. No, dirty dude. but you mentioned it like now what you're attracted to is books you've read, podcasts you've read. And that's how I've evolved with who I'm attracted to now. It's like, you talk to me about nutritional things. So that goes back to how are you growing internally? Can you talk to me about podcasts and books you've read? It's growing mentally. You talk about things you've gone through and you've worked through now. So all those things are, in a sense, if you look at it, and it takes certain people look at it differently. I think we look at it the same. That's another view, I guess you could say, or another perspective of attraction instead of just taking looks. Because I think from a societal standpoint, we're very, very drawn on looks, but then we don't look deeper into, okay, what's this person really about? And they communicate well. They reciprocate the energy that we're bringing to the table. They pour water in our glass, or are we just pouring water in their glass? So,
and they benefit just like the people, just like the friends that you're around, like your partner in your life, if there is one, like they also need to be involved in that growth with you. Because if you're growing and they're not, then guess what? At some point in time, you're going to see the difference there, and ultimately, it's probably a good time to call it off.
Yeah. I think there was a podcast. Maybe you sent it to me, or maybe I was listening to it. It was like it mentioned how two completely polar opposite people. So if you have one person that is extremely active in about personal growth and nutrition and fitness, and then you have another person that is lazy and not really up on that thing, eventually they're either going to butt heads, or there's three things that happen. They either butt heads and it doesn't work. The person that's active stoops down to the level of the lazy person, and they become two very unhealthy, lazy people. Or the lazy person levels up and meets that person at the physical level of that other person. So there's just different things. And so it is very important that when you are looking for a partner, that they fit maybe your lifestyle. Okay, so if you're dating somebody that is into Dungeons and Dragons and Harry Potter, and that's not really something that tickles your fancy, and that tickles their fancy and they like to do it every day, it might not work. Or, ladies, if you're dating a guy that likes to video game all day long, do you really in 5 years want to be dating somebody that's a gamer? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But my parents always told me, you shouldn't be a 25-year-old guy sitting in front of the TV playing video games all day. That's so unattractive. But hey, some people
there are some people who do that, and they make a killing off of it too.
Yeah, no kidding. So that would kind of went a little bit deep on the relationship side of things, of growth and personal development. But the other side of personal development comes in the aspect of who you are around. So there was a quote I saw, and it was, your level of exposure will often dictate your success. So what do I mean by that is what you are exposed by will either force you to level up or force you to be content. So with Patrick, like I said, we've been friends for about 10 years now. We used to be in the party scene and this and that, and then we grew out of it, and now Patrick will bring things to me. It's like, hey man, did you hear about the wheat belly? Did you hear about this grain?
Yeah.
This and that. And I'm like, no. And so I look into it. I'm like, I never looked at it that perspective. And then I give him things and bring up a question. He's like, well, what do you think about this? So it's always like we're always challenging each other from a standpoint of growing. It's always about growth, support. And so,
and it also, just real quick, that also holds you accountable to, it's kind of like working out or eating healthy. Like, you know, you're holding me accountable to make sure that I keep progressing in whatever aspect I'm interested in. Like I can't, like if I go a whole week and I don't have anything new to tell Kendrick, then he's gonna be like, hey, you know, like he's gonna check in. Yeah, he's gonna check in on me and be like, hey, what, you know, like you got some other things going on or what? But yeah, so it holds you accountable and, you know, keeps you growing in whatever area and whatever aspects you want to. So who you surround yourself with is detrimental for sure.
do you find that it's hard? I guess the way I would put it is, do you find like the more you level up, the harder it is to connect with people?
Yeah, but on the flip-flop side, the better and the deeper connections I have with the people who I do connect with. So yeah, there's less, you know, I can still go out with, you know, some friends and hang out, do whatever. But like, what's the quality of conversation? Very minimal. But it's like, you know, I still can have a good time with them. So yeah, like I'll still do that from time to time. But like what I really enjoy is just a night in, like 2 or 3 other people and just deep conversation. And so the quantity decreases, but the quality of those conversations is incredible. When you have 2 people who, you know, are getting to know, and you don't even have to, I think that's a lot of people are just don't know where to get started with whatever area they're interested in or with whatever they want to do. And so a lot of people are like, well, I don't, you know, I'm not comfortable with myself yet. So what, like, I don't feel comfortable talking to other people. And it's just, that's part of growing. Like when you do it, then you're going to come to the realization like, hey, this is great. Like I want more of this. And it's a human need. Like, you know, growth is a human need. Well, so is connection and community with other people. So when you find your, what's the popular word on like the social media, tribe, like that's the thing, like find your tribe. So when you find your tribe or people who have share those same interests, like conversation's incredible.
Yeah, I'd agree. And that was, you know, as far as connecting with like-minded people that have the same interests, it's almost like an energy shot. Like you don't need to go to the gas station and buy a 5 energy shot, because when you connect with people that ignite you, you almost open up a whole new world, and you're just like, damn, I didn't know this world really existed.
Oh yeah.
And that's how it is when I'm hanging out with Patrick. I know it's like, hey man, you want to go grab something to eat? I was like, well, hell yeah. I know we're going to get good conversation, and it's going to force me to think. And, you know, you're a deep thinker. I'm a deep thinker. And sometimes it is hard to get out of that mindset of always thinking deeply. Yeah. So what are some things that you do? What are some things that you've done to kind of slow your mind down?
Well, I meditate, which that's a learning process in itself and can be very frustrating. But I just realized, all right, I'm going to sit, maybe listen to some non-lyrical music, so just instrumental, whatever. And there's really not, you know, it's hard, but it's easy because there's no direction, there's no instructions. You just really, you know, you can think to yourself if you want to, but you don't have to. You can just kind of just sit in silence and just feel and really focus on your breathing. Because that just kind of, you know, focus on your breathing and focus on what's going on around you or what you feel around you, not necessarily what's, you know, what's happening. But, or you can just go, I mean, you know, a lot of people, you know, watch TV. That's not really my thing. I know it's not your thing. But yeah, if you need a little brain break just to, you know, be a zombie for a little bit, that's fine. It's balance. But like, don't let that, like if you're going home every night and you're watching 2 or 3 hours of TV, then, you know, that's probably not the right thing to do. But yeah, half hour, an hour every few days, like I don't see a problem with it because that's entertaining for you. Um, Specifically, again, I don't really count like the nutrition research as like, that's what I love to do. Like I really do enjoy it. So that's kind of my break away. I'll just like dive into a podcast or something like that. But then I also like I work out, and I don't have to think really. It's a physical doing. So I'm going to do it, and my brain takes a break, and I have to focus, I have to be present, but it's a physical form of focus, not really the mental. So the mental, like, I'm working out, and it's like a fight or flight type caveman response. Like I'm working out, and that's it. And I don't have to think about anything else, and I just turn everything else off. So
that's something that I need to look into doing, is the meditation, because my brain is like 150 miles per hour all the time. I'm thinking about, well, let me start this business, or let me do this. I find it that I'm really big into music. So, playing my guitar sometimes I get lost in it for 2.5 hours, just kind of just dicking around, as coaches would say. Again, kind of the podcasts are the same thing. You send me podcasts. You sent me one, I think it was, man, we've listened to so many podcasts over the past year, man. But then books, like reading. I have.
And it's still benefiting you in one way or another. And I think what you realize is when you're doing these things that you enjoy doing as like your, time, as your time away from thinking, it coincides with really finding what you enjoy doing as your purpose in life. So you can kind of incorporate and intertwine those things in different ways.
So the last thing that I'd like to hit on before we wrap this up is books. And this is something that I might go to my grave with, because I still haven't clearly understood it. But how do people go through life without reading books?
Well, I'll tell you, because up through college, I don't even think I might have read like a book here and there, like skimmed through it, or Spark Notes, which was huge.
Spark Notes, when we had to actually give a book review. We're like, damn, we didn't read the book.
But like, I don't think I've read a book up until like actually sat down and enjoyed reading a book, probably up through college. And it was just like, I just found other things to do. It was just, I didn't realize the importance of it. I didn't really know myself. So I didn't know what I was supposed to be reading about or what I enjoyed. So I think just right there, like that's how people do it, is just, they don't really want to know, or they just don't want to have to sit down and, use that part of their brain.
Or it's time. We're like, well, I just don't have time to read.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't. So here's the thing. When it comes to personal growth, you don't have to sit down and read a book for an hour. You don't have to read a book for 2 hours. You can carve out time. So we go back into, I think we hit on implementing a healthy lifestyle. And part of your bedtime routine or bedtime diet could be cutting out 15 or 20 minutes and just reading, which I'm pretty sure lowers cortisol levels. For sure. Secondly, it gets your mind set ready for bed. It kind of winds you down. And then thirdly, it's just one of those things that you can do consistently, and it's still something you're growing from. And I think this is a kind of a side story. I remember back in, I think it was 8th grade, we were in class, and I was sitting, I think I was in like the second row. Maybe I was in the front row. Teachers had to have a close eye on me because I was sneaking up shit. And we were reading I think the book was Outsiders. My teacher was Cheryl Kruger at the time. We're reading this book, and I'm like, man, this book sucks. And I didn't mean to say it out loud, and the class was quiet. And I think I was, how you have this round robin of, okay, you read a paragraph, the next person reads a paragraph. Well, she picked me. I was like, this book sucks. And without saying anything, I looked up, and I was like, oh, man. And I escorted myself out into the hallway. She didn't even have to say anything. She just looked up, and she had this face. And it was something that changed my life. She came out there. She didn't yell at me. She didn't give me a detention. She's like, tell me why you don't like this book. I didn't have a good excuse.
Right.
I was just pissed off she called on me. She's like, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to find a book that you like, and we're going to get you reading. And the book that we picked out was Stormbreaker. I think it was by Anthony Horowitz. I think is his name, and they have a whole series. That moment changed me forever. Now I wasn't consistent with my reading up until maybe I got out of college, to now where I have a bookcase or a bookshelf. We got 93 plus books in it. I haven't read all of them,
Right.
but I've got, so my money is often spent on books. It's often spent on growth, knowledge. And people are like, well, you're so smart. Well, I just take time to learn.
Yeah.
It's not hard. People, we've got YouTube. We've got more resources in this day and age ever than before, and we don't use them.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a public school teacher, and I don't think the school system, not to get off topic, but I don't think the school system's needed. Like, if you genuinely know what you're interested in, you can learn absolutely anything and everything about that topic on your own. As long as you learn how you learn best, your knowledge is plentiful. Like, you can get it from so many resources and immediate resources.
Do you think that if schools didn't exist and you were left to learn on your own, do you think that we could benefit from a societal standpoint of actually going out, interacting as part of our education, and then coming home in the evening and actually reading books? Do you think that would be enough? So what I mean from an interaction standpoint, because we see a lot of people, they just don't know how to communicate with one another. So most of our days spent interacting with people, and then in the evenings we read books on what we are interested in.
Yeah, I think that, yes, I mean, and that's what needs to be taught at a young age anyway, is, how to socialize, which that could definitely be learned through societal norms, but like how to socialize. And there are definitely needs for teachers, but that word could be, that could be correlated with a mentor, not just like a school teacher. School teachers need to be in existence, but it's at like the collegiate level, or, high school or collegiate level, where it's like, why, like, besides the certification that we get, for a bachelor's or a master's degree, like, what, besides the knowledge that we're gaining, like, I can learn all this on my own, probably at my own speed too, which that's what the school system fails to do. So as far as the quality of education that we're getting past the high school level, I think, a lot of those kids, if given the curriculum, if they have objectives that they need to complete, I think they'd be able to do that easily through technology and through the resources that they can have. But then, if you're interested in a specific topic, then you read it at night, and not only are you growing your mind, but you're finding what interests you. So I see it as a win-win.
I think we'd all save a lot of money too if we.
Oh yeah, probably so.
Debt in America. Ooh. No, those are good points, and it makes you step back. You're in it, like, you're a teacher and you're in it. You see it. So getting your perspective on, maybe putting kids in school system for 12 plus years or 16 plus years. Maybe that's not the answer. Maybe we have, I don't know.
I think it'd be like elementary is definitely needed. I think there's a better way to go about doing it. But like the younger age, like learning how to read, learning how to count, like those skills, obviously everybody needs. And up through junior high, I could definitely see that beneficial also. But I think in college or in high school, it needs to start like specifying as to what path, like, hey, let's teach kids how to be comfortable with themselves and how to, figure themselves out emotionally. And then let's give them the tools to where they can go out and be successful on their own. With, like, if you structure too much, those kids aren't going to learn. Like, let's teach kids how to fail. Let's make kids fail so they know how to deal with that, and then send them out, and they'll be successful.
Right. There was a quote that I saw, and it said something like, "School teaches us everything besides how to be comfortable with ourselves."
Yeah, probably
Or
so.
even how to grow stronger relationships, which I wouldn't say the school system is necessarily is the area where kids need to learn relationships. But I
Right.
think from a health, if you have a health class, I think that is part of health. That is part of growth. So if we have a health class that does talk about relationships a little bit more in depth, then this is your mom, this is your dad, oh, your brother and your sister.
Mm-hmm.
I think, how do we deal with heartbreak? How do we deal
Yeah.
with loving somebody even more? How do we deal with showing our feelings? How do we deal with being emotional? And especially us men, because from a societal standpoint, we're always taught, well, don't show feelings, don't show feelings.
Right.
So then what happens when we get in relationships? We don't show feelings.
Yeah.
And then women are pissed off.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you show me any feelings?
It's like, I don't know how.
Right.
And I didn't know how.
Likewise.
A few years, I didn't know, if I was upset or something wasn't going my way, then I'm just closed off and I'm a blank wall. I'm not giving you any type of emotion regardless. Mm-hmm. But no, and I think schools and teachers specific, it's not the school system's fault. It's not teachers' fault. It's not government's fault. It's just, I think everything just needs to be reevaluated. And what's, with the rise of anxiety and depression, I think there's specific things you can do in the school system that could be beneficial for kids. But at the same time, there's also, you can't make the teachers do one more thing, because one more thing for teachers is the 198th thing that they have to do every single day. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just, I don't know what the exact answer is, but I think there are some steps that are even being done currently, at least in the district that I'm in, that are, more geared towards student learning and social emotional learning skills, which is definitely needed.
Right. So the last thing, I know we're going a little bit over our time, but the last thing, as far as growth is, over the past maybe year and a half, as far as my personal growth, I've picked up mentors, and I don't think we can actually go through life. So if we're wanting to maybe meet a financial goal, or maybe just meet a goal of the success we have in our mind, it's very, very difficult if you don't have mentors that have been there. Like, I look at Patrick as not only a friend, but also a mentor. He teaches me about nutrition. He teaches me about new podcasts and about relationships. I mean, there's just different things that we talk about. So from your perspective, Patrick, what's your thoughts on mentors, and how important are they?
No, they're extremely important, and they're a necessity, because in one way or another, you relate to all of the mentors that you have in your lives. And looking back now, there were people who were mentors to me that I didn't even realize it at the time. Mm-hmm. But I'm still learning from them today, even though they may have passed away, or just based on maybe stories that they told me, or things that memories that we share together. I'm still learning through that. But yeah, mentors, that's the easiest way to learn something that you want to know about. Is it Gary Vee? He's telling all these people, if you want to be Johnny Depp, then go intern for Johnny Depp and see what you have to do every single day to be Johnny Depp. If you want to be, how I'm going to use that example. If you want to be like Bill Gates, then go intern and see what he does on the day to day. If you want to be as successful as him, or Warren Buffett, or whoever. So yeah, mentors, they come in all different categories and influence your life in different ways. But I mean, ultimately, the best way to learn is through experience. And if you don't have that experience, find somebody who does.
Mm-hmm. But that's right. And too many of us try to recreate the wheel. I don't care how smart you are, unless you're an Elon Musk. Yeah. Most things have been created already. Well, unless you're on the level of Elon Musk, or
he's creating flamethrowers, and
the dude is just out of this world. As intelligent as he is, I don't think I would want to be him. I think it's already hard enough trying to get my mind to wind down right now. I'd be
Oh,
awake every single day. I wouldn't even get any sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, mentors are like, if you're trying to create a business, if you're trying to start something, if you're trying to implement a lifestyle, talk to people that have already been there, because they're going to know. I think it was Warren Buffett. I think his mentor is Charlie Munger. If you guys are listening, just Google him. And I think Charlie Munger was one of the most influential people on Warren Buffett. And he's like, that was a pivotal guy in my success, because, I wanted to know things I shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what essentially what mentors, it show you what not to do, because you can waste a lot of time trying to get to somewhere if you don't have a mentor. You probably could, if you're trying to start something, if you're trying to start the next Facebook, which is very, very hard to beat Facebook, but talk to Zucks. You're like, yo, Zucks, can I take you out for lunch? You might only have 5 minutes, but it might be the most valuable thing that you could ever do in your life, just learning on things that he shouldn't have done. Privacy being one of them. Anyway, so as we wrap this up, again, growth and personal development are extremely, extremely important as you grow, especially for younger people. Take the time to grow. Take the time to become familiar with yourself. Take the time to understand why you do some of the things that you do. Because if we continue going through this life unaware and just naive to the world, makes it very, very difficult to grow strong relationships around us, and it becomes very, very difficult to network and get to where we're going. Life is about relationships, but life is also about growth. You get a lot of fulfillment out of growth. It should never end. It's always evolving. What you knew yesterday should evolve, and you should know more today. So if you got value out of this episode, please share it with somebody that you think could get value from. Share it on your social media. Tag us. Ask us questions. DM us. Get our perspective on what we think about certain topics. This is one of our platforms that we're trying to utilize in 2019 to not only help ourselves, but to help other people out there that are wanting to grow themselves to become a more complete person. So my name is Kendrick Koatsc, and I'm alongside my sidekick,
Patrick Pommier.
Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast, and until next time, we'll chat soon.